At 50, you're not too broken, too old, or even too late for the party. In today's new video, I'm going to take you through some steps as to why I think at 50, you really are just busting out of the gate. So I'm going to tell you a few things today that I wish somebody had told me even 3, 4, 5 years ago. These things that I'm about to tell you, these 7 chapters, are the things in life that I've learned and picked up in my life over the last probably decade, I would say. And today's video is not meant to be one of these slick, polished, highly motivational videos that you can look at and follow along and think, my life's not like that. This is going to be real lived experience. It's all my lived experience. Now I'm going to take you from the DJ booth to the base camp of the highest mountain in the world twice, quite literally, as I explore these 7 chapters that would make a pretty decent book in my eyes. So I'm going to be sharing any lessons that I've gleaned from Mount Everest, the highest mountain in the world. And I'm going to use Everest as a metaphor, really, because it's a metaphor for life. How many times have you heard somebody say, go out and reach your Everest, climb your Everest? You know, that challenge is like the Everest of that particular challenge. You hear it all the time. Everest is a metaphor for life. It just so happens that I actually really went to Everest twice. So I'm going to use that metaphor, but I am actually going to apply it and the real lessons that I've learned from the real mountain. It's more specifically what Everest taught me about reinvention, how I have been able to reinvent my life. And you can too, at any age and at any point of your life. Because the only permission slip that you need to reinvent yourself is from yourself. I've got 7 chapters of life to take you through, and these 7 chapters of life can be relatable to anybody, not just me. In fact, if these 7 chapters were to form a book, the book would be called It's Not Too Late and You're Not Broken. And these titles of these 7 chapters are so applicable to everybody's life. As I said, we are just going to talk about them, or I'm going to talk about them today through the lens of that metaphor of Mount Everest. But you'll pick up as we go. So when I first dreamed of going off to climb Everest, I was a rubbish club DJ. I had 1 GCSE to my name, and I also had a really dodgy knee. It wasn't looking good for me, I'll be honest. But I was still able to take a crack at reaching the top of the world. Not once, but twice. So my message, and the overriding message throughout today's episode, is going to be, if I can, so can you. So let's get into it. Chapter 1 of these 7 chapters is, I've called it Highs Before the Heights. So as I've just mentioned to you there, before Everest, before I knew what a crampon was, before I knew what an ice axe was, and before I was playing on doodle jump in some tent on some remote mountain thousands of miles away from home, I was quite literally just somebody with 1 GCSE and a dodgy knee from a working class town in the northeast of England. Now, I spent my early 20s as a nightclub DJ. Now, the only peaks I climbed back in my early 20s were bar stools after closing, and the 2 peaks on members of the opposite sex, which I wasn't very successful at that either. Now, my dream job in the Royal Marines ended before it began, thanks to a botched ear infection, which meant I was partially deaf when I went to apply for the Marines. This was my first big derailment in my life, and it wouldn't be my last. Fast forward a few years, and I'd reinvented myself as a dragon boat racer, becoming a British champion, a world corporate games champion in the process. It all sounds really good, and the reality is I had an absolute blast paddling these dragon boats through the early to mid-90s, and it took my mind off the failure of not becoming a Royal Marine. But the itch for something much bigger still remained. Then one night I went to a talk by Doug Scott, the first British person to reach the top of Everest. And you know what? Something inside me literally just clicked. I can't explain it. It's like the universe had spoken to me. At the time, back then, I didn't know how I was going to get to Everest. I just knew I had to get to Everest. And that was the start of Everest in my life. Not the actual climb, but the decision to just home in on it and go for it. Chapter 2, the science of starting late. There's a myth that success has an expiry date, that if you haven't achieved your dreams by 30, 40, 50, then you're done. But science says otherwise. The brain doesn't set like concrete as we age. In fact, neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to rewire itself, continues well into your 70s. Your emotional regulation actually improves as you get older. Your ability to focus deepens, and you stop caring so much about what others think. You care better. Research shows that founders in their 50s are twice as likely to succeed in business than their younger counterparts who are still in their 20s. And what's the reason for this? Well, it literally comes down to resilience, experience, battle scars, perspective. You've been there, you've done it, you know what works. You're more likely to succeed second, third, fourth, even fifth time around. Because by 50, you've already been knocked flat a number of times. And if you're anything like me, you've been able to get back up as well. You've learned how to read people, and you know what not to waste your time on too. You've sharpened your instincts, survived bad bosses, terrible ideas, maybe even terrible relationships. And all of that gave you one thing that the 20-somethings are still chasing: clarity. At 25, you want to go and change the world. At 50, you want to just build something that actually works. You're not seduced by side hustle culture anymore because you've lived it. You've been burned out and you've realised success isn't about grinding for 18 hours a day. It's about working smarter and building something that fits the life that you actually want. And that is why midlife is a sweet spot. It's not a crisis. If anything, being in your 50s is a launch pad to bigger and better things. Chapter 3, climbing the wrong mountain and why that's okay. In my 20s, I wanted to join the military. In my 30s, I wanted to climb Everest. In my 40s, I actually went to achieve that, but then tragedy struck twice. I didn't summit, but I did climb, and that taught me something deeply profound. As my book title says, it's not about the summit, it's about who you become on the way up. Sometimes you can spend years climbing a mountain only to realise it's not the one that you were meant to summit after all. And that's not failure, that's feedback. Your path is allowed to change. Who you are is allowed to change. In fact, it's inevitable. If you're still defining yourself by your job title from a decade ago, or the failure you made when you were 25, it's really time for an update in your life. Your life is under constant renovation, so let it be messy. No, not the Argentinian superstar footballer. Just let it be screwed up. My chapter 4 of the 7 chapters would be the voice in your head isn't always right. Now, when I signed up to climb Mount Everest, I was surrounded by what I would call proper mountaineers. Ice axes, alpenglow selfies, the kind of people who could chug a pint of whiskey just for fun. Myself, on the other hand, I was just some stubborn northerner with dodgy hearing, a rubbish knee, and a dream. But I did have full-blown imposter syndrome because of that. Who was I? Why was I there? How dare I be on Everest? But let me tell you something. Everybody has that voice. It doesn't go away. It just gets quieter with the more action you take. I didn't need to outwardly be the best. I just needed to be the best to myself. And if you're waiting to be confident before you start, you'll never start. Confidence comes after action, not before. Chapter 5, and it's all about reinvention. Everything I've been talking about so far is about reinvention. And reinvention is a skill. So here's what Everest and life ultimately taught me about reinvention. Number 1, it starts with brutal honesty. Admit you're not happy where you are. Stop polishing a life you no longer want. Get curious, not certain. I didn't know I could climb Everest. I just know I needed to try. Stack small wins. Now, I started my climbing journey with Rosebery Topping, literally a small hill in North Yorkshire that you could climb in 20 minutes with a picnic in your backpack. Now, I climbed this hill probably over 500 times with weight on my back to train for the Himalayas, because it's all I had. One step, one rep, one hill. Number 4, stay accountable to the future you. Visualize the version of yourself who's already done the thing. What does he want you to do today? And number 5, no, it will get messy. No, not the Argentinian football player. No, it's going to get complicated and screwed up. I trained for years, gave up nights out, gave up alcohol, gave up so much out of my life, spent thousands that I didn't have. And still, nature gave me a big middle finger twice and said no. But do you know what? I never regretted trying. Now I've got 2 chapters left here, and these 2 chapters are probably the most significant and important chapters of everything I've just said so far, even though all 7 chapters are equally important. But these 2 add some extra weighted merit to my words in this video. Chapter 6, you can begin again, right now if needs be. Now here's what I want to say to anybody who's watching this who feels like it's far too late in life. You are not too old to start over, and you are not too broken to build something beautiful. And you are absolutely not too late. You've already survived so much, and you're wiser than you've ever been. You have stories, scars, perspective, and grit. You know, that's experience most people can't buy. You don't need to prove yourself to anybody. You just need to show up for yourself. I began multiple times over on my journey to Everest. I tried to reach the mountain in 2002, 2003, 2004, 2007. It never happened. I took a gap in 2007 and came back 6 years later in 2012 and 2013. Vowing to myself that I was stronger, more disciplined, more motivated, more mature, and this time it was going to happen. I never lost sight of the dream and this big goal in my life. There's a well-known quote that says, set a goal so big that you can't achieve it until you grow into the person who can. And that is so true. Just keep showing up for yourself and begin whatever you want to achieve. Begin it now. Don't wait. And finally, my chapter 7 of this book would be Your Second Mountain. Now, there's a brilliant idea and a book called The Second Mountain by an American political and cultural commentator called David Brooks. Your first mountain is what society tells you to chase. Career, status, stuff. The second mountain is deeper. It's meaning, it's purpose, it's growth. It's climbing for yourself, not for applause. No, I didn't find my summit on Everest, but I found clarity, grit, humility, and the knowledge that we are always more capable than we believe. So your second mountain is waiting for you. It might be writing a book, starting a new career, backpacking your way across Europe, or just simply learning to like yourself again. Whatever it is, the best time to start climbing it is right now. So if you've enjoyed this video today, just leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know if any of those 7 chapters mean anything to you. I'd read the comments and I'll definitely respond as well. So tell me what mountain you're climbing next in your life. And remember, it's never too late to begin again, because sometimes the summit isn't a place, it's a decision. I'll see you on the next video. And in the meantime, keep wondering and keep wandering.
I packed my hope in silence, under skies of stone and fear. 1,000 steps from nowhere, but my reason led me here. The mountain never called me, I just heard it in my soul.